Sunday School teacher, I'm glad that you've joined us for our time of study and preparation. We're going to be looking at the Sunday School lesson for Sunday, September 30th. We continue in our study of the book of Galatians, and we're going to be in Galatians Chapter 4, looking at verses 8 through 20. The title of this lesson is True Freedom. The point that we want to make in this lesson, what we want our people walking away with this coming Sunday, is the understanding that believers must passionately proclaim that true freedom is found only through faith in Christ. He is the only way to be truly free. All people need to experience the liberation that is found in Christ. Only through Christ do we have liberation from the bondage of sin. The good news, the gospel, okay? The gospel message is that through faith in Christ, sinners can be freed from sin's penalty and can be freed from sin's power to rule over them. So that is the gospel message. Through Christ, sinners can be freed from the penalty of sin, and sinners can be freed from the power of sin that controls them. Number 3, those who have experienced freedom in God's grace are freed towards spiritual maturity and faithful service. So when we receive Christ, we are to grow in Christ and we are to serve Christ. And then also that service, that ministry that we are doing is to be about telling others the freedom in Christ that is available to them too. So no matter what we do, no matter what service or ministry we do, it could be feeding the hungry, it could be working in a ministry field. It could be helping in the daycare. I don't know, but everything we do has got to be about saying, hey, I'm free because of Christ, and you can know that freedom too. And so that's our purpose. Well, let's look at these verses. Again, chapter 4, look at verse 8 is where we will begin. But in the past, since you didn't know God, you were enslaved to things that by nature are not God's. But now, since you know God, or rather that have become known by God, how can you turn back again to those weak and worthless elements? Do you want to be enslaved to them all over again? You are observing special days, months, and seasons and years. I'm fearful for you that perhaps my labor for you has been wasted. And so here Paul addresses the problem. In verse 8, he reminds them of their past. He says, you didn't know God. He's talking about the intellectual knowledge as well as separation from. There's two things. It's you didn't know God. You didn't know about Him, intellectual knowledge, and you didn't know Him personally. He says that you were enslaved. That is, that they were controlled by and forced labor for. And so that is just not a good condition to be in. And he talks about things that by nature were not God's. He's talking about that they formerly worshipped idols that were just objects. They worshipped the signpost. They worshipped the sofa in their house. They worshipped objects, things, plants, stars. They're not gods. They're just things. Verse 9, Paul reminds them that God took the initiative to bring us into a relationship with Him. God was the one who took the initiative to bring us into a relationship with Him. He uses the word know again in verse 8, and it is, in verse 9, and it's different than the know in verse 8. What he's talking about there is to know through experience, that you're in that relationship.